All right, well, hey everybody, it's Chris here. I just had a moment in the studio, so I wanted to jump in to talk a little bit about what I've been working on and how I've been trying to improve the STEMcoding learning management system. So this learning management system you can get to by going to stemcoding.osu.edu, and then you register an email, and then you join some sort of a course. There's a course join key that you can use to do that. So there's another video about how to use STEM coding in an actual classroom. There's actually two videos about that, and this is kind of a follow-on to those videos, and I'm going to talk about some of the improvements that I've been making. So if you've done our Move the Blob activity from our Hour of Code interface, go.osu.edu/movetheblob. That's great. And so this is definitely a way that you can use our activities. But this way is a little bit nicer, not necessarily for the students, but for the teachers, and because it allows the teachers to kind of see a nice grid of all the students, all the activities that they've been doing, things like that. So in this interface, so here's Move the Blob, just to show you an example. So in this interface, you go ahead and you click here, and then this comes up. So down here, you can see the what's called the sketch, or the canvas. And so once again, we have this blob that moves to the right, but it doesn't move left, up, or down. So it's just like our Hour of Code version of this activity. And so if you want to modify the code, what you have to do is click Edit this lab file group. It's called lab file group because I kind of think of these as programming labs. So there's like real labs in physics, and there's programming activities, so it's like a programming lab. So here's the code. So that should look pretty familiar if you've done our Hour of Code activity. And if you've got pop-up blockers disabled, then you'll be able to sort of run this in the browser here. Now, if you've already been using our STEMcoding learning management system, this file here is a little bit new and unfamiliar. And I don't necessarily need people to look at this file, but as the name suggests, iPad Fix. This file does a couple of things. The main thing it does is it allows iPads to work with this interface. So there's some weird issues with the way that the iPad external keyboard works, particularly the arrow keys that we're able to fix with this thing. So again, this is kind of a new thing here. Now, a big problem we had with the STEMcoding learning management system in the past was that, and there's a whole video on this, on troubleshooting with the STEMcoding LMS, learning management system. The problem was that if you screw something up in this code, the only way that you'd be able to find out about it was through basically clicking F12 and looking at the browser interface. But now, thanks to some clever code that I've been able to put in here, I've been able to do things, for example, so if let's say that I take this Vx and I rewrite it V, which is not a variable. I didn't declare that variable, so this is going to cause a problem. Now, in this text editor, it's not going to cause a problem because this text editor assumes that you know what you're doing with the variable names, whether that has any basis in reality or not. But if I go ahead and erase that, and I change the Vx to a V, then I run the program, then it'll come up and it'll say V is not defined. So I'll make that a little bit bigger. Now the nice part about this, so this didn't used to happen, but through my tinkering I managed to get it to work. So this is really important because iPads don't have an F12 button. And so there was no way to get this error message. The other way to get this error message is if you hit F12, you see V is not defined. So that was the old way of finding the error message, and that's fine. But again, it's not going to work for iPads. So I'm glad to say that finally works. The other thing that this allows you to do, and again, this relates back to the troubleshooting thing, is that, so let's say that you do something silly like, okay, so Vx, I'm going to put a parentheses here. So, in math world, this might work because the multiplication is implied, right? But in computer world, this is not going to work. because it thinks that you're trying to use VX as if it is a function, but this function is never defined anywhere. So the interesting thing is that this text editor does not detect any problems with this because it assumes you know what you're doing both with the variable names and with the function names. But when you go and run the program, it realizes it doesn't have the definition of this function. It's going to throw up an error. So I can go down here, click Run Code. And by the way, if you're paying very close attention, you'll notice that there's a couple seconds delay when I press Run Code. So there it is. VX is not a function. So there you go. So even on an iPad, you can see this error message, whereas before you just got this white screen of death with no error message, no way to see the error message. So now this is giving you something that's useful. What I want to do again is just to highlight that when you press Run Code now, it takes a bit longer than it did to actually run the sketch and produce an error. So it might take maybe even 2 or 3 times as long as it used to, and some people tell me it takes 5, sometimes 6 seconds before it actually runs a sketch. That is because there is more code that is being parsed in order to be able to write this to the disk. I have a way of speeding that up, but I'm still working on implementing that. So you might want to be a little bit patient with that. But maybe by spring break, cross your fingers, we'll see what happens. So anyway, so that's the improvement to the STEMcoding learning management system. Again, it's working better with iPads now, both because we have the arrow keys working and also because we have the ability to write these error messages to the screen. But it's also good for everybody because it's good for everybody to see the error messages to the screen because, you know, hitting F12 and hunting around for these things is just kind of a pain in the butt, no matter what kind of computer that you're working on. So this benefits really everybody, not just the iPad users. So high five to myself. Yay! High five, Chris. So please enjoy these features and reach out to us on Twitter or YouTube chat if you'd like to use this resource. Thanks.